Hi, welcome back to English for Adults. Before we go on, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. This is a listening practice for intermediate learners. You can download the transcript and the worksheet for free from my Patreon page. See the link below. Giovanni made his way down the road, peering at the street names over his reading glasses. Via D'Angelo. Now where was that? He looked down at the unfolded map, trying to find the street. He angled his head this way and that, sighing at the archaic method. He would have used the GPS on his phone, but in the remote village among the hills of Umbria, the phone was more of a headache. He knew he needed to learn the place better, but it was only his second week on the job and in San Luca. He took off his hat to scratch his head in frustration. The mailman hat was warm, and in the sun his hair damp under it. Finally, he found where he was on the map. Now he just needed to find Via Garibaldi, the address on the letter. Who wrote letters in this day and age was beyond him, but here it was. Though it must have been written by a doctor. The street was barely legible on it, let alone the name of the recipient. Via Garibaldi was just 2 streets down. He took note of the turn on the map, folded it back, and packed it away. He got back on his bike and carefully started up on the gently sloping road. The pavement was barely there. He was used to riding on the streets of Rome, weaving among the cars with death-defying speed. In the dust, he had to be careful of hidden stones and holes. He had already torn 1 pair of trousers last week by falling, and he only got 2 with his uniform. He stopped once he spotted the sign of Via Garibaldi. He took the letter out again. The house number was 14. Pushing his bike, he started to look for the house numbers. In typical village fashion, only some houses actually had numbers on them. Most did have the name of the owner, though. So the name he was looking for was Mario or Maria something? He was frustrated at the author's penmanship. Maria Rosetto, said one of the signs. He looked more closely at the name on the letter. It could be Rosetto. Shrugging, he assumed that in such a tiny village, even if he did deliver the mail to the wrong person, they would just sort it out among themselves. So he rang the bell and waited for someone to open the gate. A dark-haired, middle-aged woman opened the wooden door, her apron covered in flour. He could see her baking bread or making fresh pasta in there, and wondered if he'd ever be invited in by a local. Signora Rosetto? He asked out of courtesy. Yes, that's me, she replied. I have a letter for you, the mailman said, handing her the envelope. Thank you. She took it away from him and was already closing the gate, heading back into the house. Giovanni sighed. He had half hoped he would be invited in for a coffee break, but it wasn't to be so. Maria didn't even think about offering coffee to the new mailman. She would have definitely had the old mailman, Riccardo, go inside. However, he was somewhere in Rome, too old to live on his own, sharing an apartment with his sister. She sometimes missed their chats, but they kept in touch over the phone. She looked down at the thin envelope. She hadn't had mail in years other than the occasional invoice. She sat down in the kitchen, ignoring the half-done bread dough on the table, and eagerly opened the unexpected surprise. She pulled out the single folded paper on which, in atrocious, awful handwriting, someone had written an even more atrocious, awful message. Your husband are cheating on you. Bad grammar and lack of punctuation aside, she was shocked. She dropped the sheet of paper and just stared at the words. Her husband, her Andrea, cheating. Impossible. Her first reaction was rage. How could someone accuse him of such a thing? Then she sat down and began to think. He had been working late a lot. He said it was because the factory he worked at was moving to a new site. That much was true. However, did it really take weeks and weeks of staying as late as 10 or 11? What if it was just an excuse? She abandoned her baking and rushed 2 doors down to her best friend, Maria. They were often called the two Marias in the neighborhood. She didn't knock, just rushed into the kitchen to find her friend finishing stuffing a small pig to roast in the oven once it cooled down a bit. She looked up startled, her hand deep in the meat. What's going on? She asked, noting the shocked look in her friend's eyes. I got an anonymous letter saying that Andrea is cheating on me. No. Yes. Can you believe it? That man worships the ground you walk on. Surely it's just a prank. She dismissed the idea. I don't know. He has been staying out late a lot. She wondered out loud. So has my Emanuel, and I'm not worried at all. You know how hard they're working with the move. She tried to quiet Maria's fears. You're right. I'm just being silly. She laughed nervously. I'll let you get back to your cooking. I was making bread. I'll do a loaf for you as well. Thank you. I'll make sure you two have some of the pig. It's too big for the two of us anyway. There won't be just the two of you for long, she grinned, gesturing to her friend's distended belly. The other Maria just laughed and waved her away. Maria went back home and finished her breads, leaving them on the table in the warm kitchen to rise. In the summer, the heat was enough to not have to light the oven. As she waited, she sat down in front of the TV and watched some Don Matteo. The feel-good show always cheered her up. When the air finally started to cool, she turned on the oven, kneaded the dough one last time, and baked the 2 loaves of bread. She watched some more TV. The breads had cooled, and there was still no sign of her husband. She glanced towards the letter still under the kitchen table where it had fallen. What if it was true? What if she was cooking, baking, cleaning, waiting for a man that was stepping out on her? No, it was a lie. However, as the minutes ticked by, it felt more and more true. She heard the car turn into the driveway, and then he was before her. The cad. Where have you been? She demanded. Working, replied a startled Andrea. Working? At this hour? Tell me the truth. You're cheating, right? Am I boring you? Maybe there's a big city girl in the office in a tight skirt that you find more interesting? Confess. Confess to me now. Her husband stared at her dumbfounded, his mouth open and closed without a sound. What? He managed. Maria blinked. She had no idea where all that had come from. She only knew that as she waited, as she looked at her kitchen, her home dress, and her life, the thoughts just kept coming. She hadn't even realized she had stood up. She flopped back down on the sofa and took some deep breaths. Seeing her calm down, her husband cautiously knelt down next to her feet. You know I love you, he began pleading. I'm sorry I've been working so much, but the move is done in a week and we'll go away to Portofino in August. I promise you, there's no girl in a tight skirt. Well, there is one in the office, but I don't care. I'm sorry, she cried. I got an anonymous letter today saying that you're cheating on me. Where's this letter? He asked, baffled at the revelation. Under the kitchen table. He got up and gathered the offensive message. As he was bringing it to his wife, he examined the envelope for a return address. Of course, there was none, but he noticed something else. Love, this wasn't meant for you. She looked up, bewildered. He sat down next to her. Look, the house number is 14, and we live under 10. The last name isn't Rosetto, it's Rosotto. He showed her the envelope, and as she examined it, she realized he was right. It wasn't meant for her. It was meant for her best friend. What was she going to do? Thanks for watching. Please check out my other videos as well for more vocabulary practice. Please consider becoming my patron for as little as €3 a month.